Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to CW Live. My name is Chris Webb, Head of Communications. This is a special session for our RMPFSL members. Delighted to have with me our national officers, Mark Boach and Carl Maiden. We want to say before we kick off the session, we know many of you, a majority of you, vast majority of you will be working. So this is a session really which we're going through now live. If you can watch it, fantastic. But it's available for you all to watch on catch up as you at your leisure ahead of the strike action tomorrow. It was obviously with Mark, myself, and Carl all being out and about on picket lines and all being out, preparing for the action that's taking place across the Royal Mail Group today and tomorrow, and your action tomorrow. Getting us all together in one place was a challenge. We've achieved that. We're here now. So basically, we wanted to give you an update. Two things really: give you an update on the negotiations that have been taking place with the employer, and more importantly, I think make sure that everybody is ready to take that strike action and support that strike action tomorrow. So on that basis, Mark, if I can ask you, first of all, just to set the scene.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And as Chris has explained, we're doing this live at this time of the day. And we understand a lot of our members in PFSL are working. But as Chris has also said, we're in the middle of the 48-hour dispute in Royal Mail. And so therefore, we're trying to grab time while we're also out and about doing picket lines and addressing members, etc., etc. So hopefully people will understand that. Where we are is this in the dispute. Obviously, our members in PFSL are taking action tomorrow. It's the third day of action. It's very important that you support that action, and it's very important that you stand with our members shoulder to shoulder in Royal Mail and show solidarity as well. But in terms of the PFSL dispute, it is a separate dispute. It is a separate bargaining unit. And so therefore, it has its own identity. Now, in relation, and Carla will talk about the building engineers and admin people, but in terms of the cleaners who fall under the outdoor department's remit, my remit, we have had some meetings with PFSL over the last couple of weeks. We have tried very hard to push the company in order to get an acceptable agreement and resolution. And it's fair to say on many of the associated issues we have made some progress, significant progress, but on the key issues of pay and pensions in particular, those still remain outstanding. And despite our challenges back to the company, and we did have a meeting back end of last week where the company in discussion intimated that they were prepared to improve their previous full and final offer. I think they described it. We met again yesterday, and we were a little bit disappointed, to be honest. Not because I think they gave us the impression last week in the discussions that they were prepared to make another improved formal offer. That didn't come yesterday, and so effectively, we've not received anything formal from the company, and at the moment, obviously the dispute goes ahead tomorrow. Well, it goes ahead tomorrow, not at the moment. It absolutely goes ahead tomorrow, because we don't have an agreement at this stage on those key issues of pay and pensions for cleaners. Obviously, the real sticking points are the fact that the company signed up to the real living wage implementation for the vast majority of cleaners who received that in April of this year have had an increase, but that at that stage was without prejudice and shouldn't have impacted on any final and formal pay negotiations. The company have not come good on that, and despite the fact that the Real Living Wage Foundation brought their review forward this year because of the cost of living crisis, and recommended that companies should pay that earlier, and an increase in 2023's increase earlier. And I think that's a 10% increase as well. They're recommending. Obviously, they're recognising the cost of living crisis. Now, we put that to PFSL. We've said that our cleaners deserve, at the very least, that to be brought forward and paid earlier. We also believe that cleaners in the inner London area and some in the outer London area and the mobile cleaners have not received an increase, and so therefore We want more on the table for those groups of people. In addition to that, on the cleaners pay, we're looking for a 2-year agreement because obviously now it's December. The best will in the world, even if we were to get an agreement now, that wouldn't get paid until sort of January, February. And so effectively we need to be in next year's pay bargaining now. So they're the sticking points with the company at the moment. We made our position very clear to them yesterday. We were disappointed in the fact they didn't come back with a formal proposal, and that's where we are at this stage. On the pensions, we're still some way short on pensions. Pension seen for our members in PFSL, particularly on cleaners, is a bit of a mixed bag, with some members in Nest, some in the legal and general scheme, the defined contribution scheme, and others in the previous Royal Mail schemes. But what we want to do is have an acceptable and agreed flight path that gets our members into our cleaning members. I'm sure I know from Carl's perspective, the engineering members, into a similar scheme or the same scheme as our member, the combined scheme that is to be launched in Royal Mail Group. So that's where we are at the moment. We want you to keep staying strong, support the action tomorrow. It's very important that you do that, and that will enable us, hopefully, to get an agreement over the line.
Thank you, Mark. Brilliant. Carl, obviously, Mark's given a comprehensive update there on the landscape, the negotiations, and I think what a lot of members will be asking is, what the union are looking for as well. Mark's given us all that. Is there anything you want to add on behalf of our engineering members before we open up?
Yeah, I think that the first thing to do, Chris, is acknowledge that we have made some progress. However, that progress, was early on in the negotiations, and we then seem to have stalled, and it's frustrating. Look, originally, and their current proposal, they want different pay awards for admin and engineering, and all sets of workers work through the pandemic and deserve a decent pay rise. We met with them last week after their full and final offer, and of course we're pleased to be back in the room and actually doing some negotiation. However, as Mark said, last week we laid out where we believed was the finishing line for an agreement. We've given them an agreement, and as Mark said, we've put forward a proposal for a 2-year agreement that gives us some stability. We met last week, and then we had another meeting set up for yesterday. Now, I'm sure Mark was the same. I thought that yesterday's meeting was going to be set up on the basis of we try and conclude an agreement. And, to be quite frank, it could have stopped tomorrow's dispute in PFSL if we'd got that agreement around it. Every time we think that we're near the finishing line, something comes up that they've got to go away. For the proposal that we put forward yesterday, I've even given them the figures. I've worked out the figures myself of what it will cost them. So I don't understand why they couldn't have either said yes, no, or look, we just need to have further talks. We offered all yesterday afternoon. We offered to meet the day. They haven't picked up that offer. So the fact that we're still in dispute lays firmly at the door of the RMPFSL senior management. And just to be clear, we are available to talk. We want to conclude this agreement and get some money into our members' pockets.
Thanks, Carl. I mean, Mark, one of the things, you can see on the feed here, those members who have made it on, obviously, as we said earlier on, the majority of our members will be watching this later on when they finish work. But those who have made it on are absolutely beyond the strike, which is fantastic. So thank you to everyone who's commented. And also thank you to our wider Royal Mail Group members and in fact, the public who have been putting support in the comments. It's really, really appreciated by our members and by the union. But there will be much, similar to getting Royal Mail, people saying, I'm in for this, but there's a cost of living crisis, it's Christmas. How confident are we as a union that, sticking with the union, continuing to support the strikes, getting on the picket line is going to deliver a proper agreement for people?
Yeah, I think that's a It's a good question, Chris. I think absolutely. I mean, the only way we're going to get anywhere, any of us, is by standing strong together. I mean, the thing I would say, though, is that we have balanced that in PFSL to a degree. Look, we're very conscious, and I'm very conscious, particularly from a cleaner's point of view. You know, our cleaning members are not on, fantastic rates of pay. Our cleaning members, we know that giving up any pay to support strike action is a test for them, is challenging. And we don't take that lightly, which is why we've been more measured, I think, with the PFSL dispute in that sense. Plus, of course, as well, to be fair to PFSL, Cole said it, initially, we, in our meetings with PFSL and across the bargaining table, on a number of areas, we've made some significant progress, because it is quite a stretching agenda, because our cleaners and our building maintenance and admin people in PFSL absolutely deserve a decent agreement. So on things like maternity, paternity, increases in annual leave whilst on pay, and other harmonisation elements of an overall package, we've made significant progress, to the point where we're pretty near to touching hands on those issues. The frustration, and I think Cole said it, is that every time you think you're getting to a point where there's a deal to be done, the goalposts seem to shift, or the offers that are intimated in the room when the formal letter comes over doesn't reflect the discussions. So it's frustrating. So I think we're trying to counterbalance that. And we're very conscious, particularly from the cleaner's point of view, and I'm sure Cole's the same, that we need to be mindful of where people are under dispute. But it's absolutely critical, and I repeat it, that people stand strong together, because the only way we're going to get an agreement is by being united and standing strong and supporting the union. Obviously, that gives us maximum bargaining position with the employer.
Thank you, Mark. Carl, obviously our branches today across the country will be concentrating. They'll all be on picket lines. They'll be, supporting the Royal Mail Group strikes and prepping for those tomorrow. But on those picket lines, will our RMPFSL members come in or out of work, or pop out on their lunchtime? We'll have the opportunity in every workplace to engage those groups of members and convince them, to support the strikes tomorrow. Would you encourage our branches, who I know many of whom will be watching this session live with us on the picket lines, to just go that extra mile and make sure the support for the strike is as good as it can possibly be tomorrow?
Oh, absolutely, Chris. And I have to say, there's a massive testament to our members in the Royal Mail Group dispute, because that is a bitter dispute, and what they're doing and the support and standing up also needs to be acknowledged. Yeah, look, I mean, we hear of it all the time around, the comradeship, if you like, or the camaraderie between, even though they're two different disputes and they have to be legally, we're one union, and people are saying, well, look, yeah, we will be there. Yeah, we do want branches. You may have areas where, where RMPFS could be picketing on their own. Of course, encourage branches to go up. Single aid group that we represent in dispute, we want to support. And we want people to work together. They're both out tomorrow, so there's nothing legally that stops anybody, being on picket lines or wherever. So yes, we do encourage branches. A message to our RMPFSL members in particular is, we believe that they may be looking at the support for tomorrow, and that could be in the back of their mind, where they're playing a little bit of brinkmanship, see what the support is like tomorrow, and that'll make their mind up on what their next offer is. We met last week. Verbally, we'd made some further progress, but we haven't. If that is where the business are, I would ask all our RMPFSL members, including our admin unit, because they've been trying to tell our admin unit in Leeds and our doorkeepers that they're not on strike. Well, you are. And, if we want to get the best way that we'll get a deal is the business know that you're supporting the position that we're in. We get observed, we get fight for. And therefore, we would encourage all our RMPFSL members to be on strike tomorrow to send a strong message to the business, which will also help our hand in a negotiation.
Thanks, Carl. Mark, I'm going to give you both a chance to sum up now, really. And in doing so, Mark, I'll read this comment out, which is a lovely comment from Marco, who says, cleaners are extremely important everywhere. Could you imagine our offices without the cleaners tidying them up? Could you imagine how it would have been during the pandemic without them in hospitals, how it would be without the cleaners? It would be horrendous. Go to cleaners. So that solidarity is coming there. And I mean that's a good impetus maybe for you to give us something up,
It is actually, it stole my thunder a little bit. So thank you, Marco, because that's exactly what I was going to say in summing up. You look, our cleaners absolutely deserve a decent and fair deal. They absolutely deserve decent and the right terms and conditions, and absolutely deserve our respect and our admiration and our gratitude for everything that they did during the pandemic, but not just the pandemic. Everything they do on a daily basis, keeping offices clean, keeping them tidy, all the work that they put in, often not seen, particularly in delivery offices, because the cleaners tend to, many of which are part-time and come in after the delivery staff have gone out, and so they're not always seen. But I can tell you, our cleaning members are really truly appreciated by us, and hopefully they're treated and with respect as well by our other members in the workplaces. So look, we are absolutely determined. I know Cole's the same for the engineers and the admin, but from my perspective, from the cleaners, we're absolutely determined to get our cleaners a decent pay deal, along with decent terms and conditions on all of the things that we said, the associated terms and conditions as well. Now I know the cleaners and some of the reps feel that the cleaners and PFSL in general are kind of like the poor relations of the union. That is not the case. I can tell you, I know how much time, effort that Carl, myself, Mick Kavanagh and Steve Jones, other PE members and the reps put in for our PFSL members. I can absolutely guarantee and tell you that we give our PFSL members the credit and the time and the respect they deserve. So look, we need to stand strong. You need to support the dispute tomorrow. Only by we've made some progress, but we've only made that progress because of your support, and with your continued support, we hopefully will get a deal over the line, a deal that you absolutely 100% deserve. So stay strong, support the strike tomorrow, and obviously we'll be keeping in contact and further communications.
Thank you, Mark. Brilliant, buddy. Carl, your final message, mate?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Look, I want people to go back through the pandemic and how that felt, having to come to work. RMPFSL were key workers. They kept Royal Mail going. Without RMPFSL, a lot of the units would have had to have closed. You were heroes. You were being clapped until it come to your pay rise. And we can't allow the business to forget that. Yeah, you are owed for the work that you did, and risking your health, your family's health. You contributed to the record profits that Royal Mail Group made, and what we want is a share of them profits for you in PFSL, that you can have a decent standard of living going forward. Our engineers and admin are crucial within PFSL. They are respected, and we want the company to respect them in order to by putting on the table a decent offer. We talk about some progress, but it is done on the basis of nothing's agreed until it's all agreed. So we need to get the final bits over the line. We can then have an agreement that we'll be proud of and put in front of you for you to vote on, and hopefully that'll be something that we can resolve very soon. Support the strike tomorrow, and solidarity to all our members who are on strike.
Thank you, Carl. So thank you to Carl. Thank you to Mark. Most importantly, thank you to all of you. Some of you tuned in live. We know the majority of you have been watching this on catch up. Do the right thing tomorrow. Support the strikes. Get on the picket lines and feel the solidarity of all your colleagues in your workplaces in the Royal Mail Group who are also taking strike action. Thank you, everybody.